Now that we have the diesel tank installed, today we're adding a dual function diesel heater to our Skoolie called a Webasto Dual Top Evo 6. This diesel heater not only can heat the air in our Skoolie living area like a furnace in a house, but it also has a 3-gallon water tank that can heat water to either 40 or 70 Celsius, which is about 104 to 158 degrees Fahrenheit respectively. We're going to use the diesel hydronic heating functionality to provide hot water to our recirculating shower. The question is, will this even work for endless off-grid hot showers?
You know what this means? It means endless showers. For all of us. All of us living in this bus.
Considering we think this is an interesting topic, we decided that we wanted to test out a recirculating shower because water consumption is at the top of everyone's mind when living off-grid in a Skoolie, van, tiny home, homestead, or anyone who is wanting to be water conscious. So we put the pencil to paper and did some calculations to see if it would be worth our time, money, and experimentation. What we found out shocked us. Our Delta shower head can put out up to 2.5 gallons per minute, which means a 10-minute shower would use 25 gallons of water. Our freshwater tank is 100 gallons. That means our 100 gallons of fresh water would be gone in just 4 showers, or 2 for Aaron and 2 for me, or more for Aaron and less for me. You know how that goes. That math didn't jive with us. With a recirculating shower, theoretically, the water would go from the 16-gallon holding tank through the pump, strainer, and into the pump. The pump would then push the water through a sediment filter, carbon filter, and UV filter to clean the water. From there, the line would tee off with one branch going to the cold water side of the shower mixing valve, and the other line would go to the diesel-fired water heater, and then on to the hot water side of the mixing valve. After setting the shower faucet handle to the desired heat level, the shower would then drain back into the holding tank until it goes on another ride through the plumbing. We originally saw this idea on showerloop.org, where they have an open source big version of what we're installing. After doing some further searching, we saw that Snow and Kurt installed a smaller version, which is where we got the inspiration for our system. If you haven't checked them out, they have a fun van life channel on YouTube that you may enjoy watching their travels. Now back to installing our diesel heater.
What are you up to, Brian?
I'm putting together the diesel heater. Starting with the mounting brackets. Wow. It's upside down right now. It's going to be the opposite way. These are little vibration dampeners, and so basically this is going to be hanging underneath the bus this other direction. I can show you what that's going to look like here in a second.
It looks heavy.
It is heavy. So that reduces vibration. So I've got to weld up a cradle that's going to go underneath it with little arms that come up, and these little vibration reducers will help eliminate reduce vibrations. There we go. Huh. So this will go up and then mount to the underbody somewhere, somehow. Not sure how that's going to work yet.
Do we know where yet?
In the underbody.
In the underbody?
Oh no, behind the underbody.
Oh, thank God.
Woo! Oh.
We have precious space.
You just gave me a little heart attack.
He gave me a heart attack. We have precious space in the underbody, and it is filling up really, really fast. So the last thing both of us wanted was for this thing to have to go in the underbody. So it's gonna go behind the underbody storage, in between the tires, like in the center of the chassis.
Yeah, in the center of the
center of the chassis.
Yeah, so there's a few things going on with this. We've got the hot air outlets on this side. This is where hot air gets blown out. Evidently there's 2 holes for that. So cool. That's interesting.
Well, then we can tee it. Well, we don't have to tee it. Then they can go 2 different directions.
They can go 2 different directions.
Wow.
Wow. So we'll have to figure out where those are gonna come up. On this other side, we have a couple air inlets. We've got fuel inlet, combustion inlet, and recirculating air inlet, and then cold water in and hot water out. So this is where the recirculating shower side of the things will attach at some point here in the near future. And inside there's 11-liter tank that is heated with diesel. And so with this this particular unit, we can adjust if we are used with this little module that'll go upstairs.
Look at that.
We can adjust if we want it off, if we want to drain the tank, if we want the water to be 40 Celsius. 70 Celsius if we want just heat, if we want heat and water, or if we want to put it in anti-frost mode. And then
that's if you park it, right?
Yeah. If you park it, or if you're going to take a day trip or whatever away from your unit, you could put anti-frost mode, and that just protects it from freezing if it's freezing outside, or you could just turn the system off if it's not freezing and you're heading out. So, and then this is just a thermostat here for the forced air side. There's also all this stuff that I've just unpacked here is everything that we're gonna need to install it. Hopefully it's everything we need. All right, y'all, we are under the bus now. So right around here, this is the back end of the bus. So the transmission is right here. The back side is this way. This is the underbody storage area. And right up here is where we're going to be mounting the Webasto diesel heater. So let me see if I get you far enough away so that you can see all of this. So the ribs underneath the bus here are spaced out every so often, and we got to be able to utilize those ribs in which to hang the diesel heater. So what I'm going to do is kind of map out the distances of everything so that we can create a bracket to hang the diesel heater. Oh, do you want to come with me? All right, I'll take you. Now, because I'm all about mocking stuff up, what I'm doing here now is I'm transferring my plan down to this cardboard with the actual unit on top. So this is the actual orientation that it's going to sit underneath the bus. So if you see the bus over here, so there's the front, right? And then there's the back over there. This is going to sit in the underbody in this exact orientation. Now what that helps me with is I'm able to take the plan that I have and the wall for the underbody, imagine it being here, I can take my plan with all my measurements and start drawing it out here so that I know how big to make the bracket that this is going to eventually be strapped to. So first off, we need to establish where the edge of the feet are on this. So from the edges, so grabbing a straight edge or something straight, I might get a longer one of these. That way I can hit both of them at the same time. Let me go grab one of those. All right, now that I have the plan all written out on the cardboard here of where the joists are in the ceiling, how far apart they are and everything, I can now take the square tube and start figuring out how long that needs to be comparatively. So essentially it's gonna end up being pretty freaking close to the exact size of being between the joists. And I think that'll work pretty good. So I'm gonna measure that out, get this square tube cut, and then start creating the vertical brackets that are gonna go off of those. I looked at the directions for the Webasto for mounting, and it says that it only needs 20 millimeters or about 3/4 of an inch or so all the way around it, mainly for heat reasons. On the sides. So because there's 11 3/4 inch between the top edge and the actual floor, we have plenty of room for air circulation there. So I'm just gonna give it 3/4 of an inch between the top of the Webasto, maybe an inch between the top of the Webasto unit and the chassis, just so that there's a little bit of room for vibration and possible movements, because I don't want this thing slamming against the chassis ever, because that could damage it. And we want this thing to work really good when we need it. So it's time to start cutting some steel and fabricating yet another bracket. Have you noticed it seems like everything that we're doing, we're fabricating nothing's off the, like, rarely ever do we get anything that's off the shelf that is going to work for our purposes. And we're pretty happy about that. Like, we're creators. We love to work with our hands and stuff. A lot of these projects are extremely difficult for us to wrap our heads around and get working on, but that's part of the fun, I think, also. So here we go. Oh yeah, that fit perfectly. Nice. All right, so now that we have the bottom brackets secured, then we moved them around a little bit, spaced them about 7 3/4 inches apart. Because the instructions said, oh, space them 200 millimeters apart, but I don't have a millimeter ruler. So 7 3/4 it is. Now we need to make the vertical pieces. So from the top edge of this to where it's hanging is 10.5 inches. And then from the top edge of this to the bottom edge of that is 13 inches. So the total that this bar needs to be is 23.5 inches. So I'll cut 4 pieces that are 23.5 inches and then weld them onto this bottom piece. And then we can make the top piece that's gonna hang, and then also make diagonal cross supports to prevent it from swaying. Dry fit works with this. So now you get to somehow maneuver. Let's see, might put it this way. Well, that was a good sleep. Time to head back under the bus. Now that the Webasto is positioned under here, I will be able to actually screw it into place and finish the mounting on it. And so let's see what it is looking like this morning. I said morning, it's actually already afternoon. There it is. It's above the bottom line here of the underbody, the dirty underbottom, dirty bus underbottom. We're going to connect it up. If you can see the angle iron right here, this is part of the frame that I made, and it goes up and hooks to that one. And then on this side, it goes up, and I've got vice grips up there holding it in place because I don't want it to shift while I'm drilling the holes out. And then further underneath on this side, there's what it looks like there. So it's pretty tight, pretty dark, but I'm gonna try to set up a good view for you. You may not be able to see what I'm drilling, but basically I am drilling the cross member. I wonder if I can get you a better view over here. Problem is I don't want you to be in the way or to get hurt while I'm drilling. I don't want to hurt the camera, exactly. Yeah, made it through that one. We're gonna drop a bolt in through the top. I'm grabbing a little bit of Loctite. So we're using 3/8 inch grade 8 bolts. Is this not gonna come out? All right, yo, it is officially hung. So now we get to start running the hoses and stuff. So hopefully this part is a little bit easier than building the bracket and installing it. Wish me luck. All right, so now that we've got it all mounted down there, it is time to start drilling holes for the conduit, for the return, for the hot air, and also for the plumbing. So first we're gonna start with the return air because we've got the plumbing to do with that, and I'll show you all of that right meow. So initially I was just gonna slide this hose through, but then I was like, you know what? This is a sharp edge over here, y'all. What if we made it a little safer and put a little safe edge on it? There we go. So there's a couple ways to install a diesel heater. You can either pull fresh air out from the outside and then warm it and then put it on the inside, or you can do what's called recirculation and recirculate the air on the inside. So once it's been warmed, it's a little bit more efficient to recirculate the air. And the reason being is it's already been warmed a little bit, so it's a little less work for a diesel heater to continue warming. So it won't be as much work for the heater. And so the only thing with that is you're not letting in fresh air. So every once in a while you might need to crack a window, let in a little fresh air. That could be accomplished by going on an adventure or something, or going outside and exploring. Every single time you open the door, a little fresh air comes in. Nice. Now we're gonna do that on the other side as well. As promised. There you go. That's what it looks like. A little safe edge. It's almost like as if we used a grommet or something, but this is a little bit over 4 inches of diameter. It's actually a 4-inch diameter hole, but probably a little bit bigger after the rattle and roll. So a few other things that we need before we attach this is we need to run the cold and hot water lines through that tube. We also need to put a hose clamp on this guy. And what else do we need? We need the boot also. So let's get those. We'll get this situated so it's not rubbing on this. And we also need to get the cap put on this for the intake. Alright, a little better view of this. Alright, so I've got that flexible ducting around the actual duct, and that's just to prevent from like road debris, because here's the tire, here's the wheel well, like the bottom edge of it. We could extend the wheel well down, but I don't think I'm going to, because I don't think a mud flap here would really be necessary, but this will definitely protect against that. And this leaf spring this bracket doesn't move. The leaf spring here may just pivot a little bit. So I'm not really worried about this part right here, and we'll just keep an eye on it. The bellows looks good. I've got this crimped on the end of the bellows, and then the all thread here holding this down just to help further secure it. So I may try to crimp that further up there, but so far so good. That's your combustion intake. So this goes into there. There it goes. Okay, so now this has to be at a slight downward angle. I might cut this to be a little bit shorter, because if we could put this here, I could drill a hole and mount it, and then it would be out of the way. So, and then also at a downward angle, or I could leave it long, but we want it down. So it amazes me how much companies charge for their products, and then they give you lackluster connection points. It's like, really, guys? All right, so return air. We need to connect that to a hole that does not exist yet right here. And don't mind these wires, I haven't secured them yet. So we need to drill a hole there so that we can go up and build the return air duct that is going to go up into the kitchen area. And we gotta put a little register on it and figure out how we're gonna do all that. But these two water lines, they need to exit the piping right here, which is why I cut the pipe. And so now that we've got that situated, so we could do an elbow coming out of it, but I need to put an extension on so that we can then go up. So that's what I'm working on now. Y'all, not gonna lie, drilling that big hole down there hurts. The way that the torque of the drill totally like grabs the metal and just jars your joints does not feel good. So I ended up drilling just a hole all the way through, pilot hole through the floor, and I'm gonna drill from the top side down and see if that's a little bit easier because it's not above my head. Oh. How's Ms. Vic doing?
Good. I'm almost on this wall.
Oh,
How you doing, silly?
Oh my gosh, drilling down there hurts.
Yeah, I bet.
All right, there's the pilot hole. If you can see that. There's the hole, y'all. That was a tough one. Next up, we're gonna put a little safe edge around there. Not because our fingers will be around it, but to help protect the pipe that's gonna go through and prevent it from wearing through, because metal has a pretty sharp edge when it's freshly cut, and it maintains that edge pretty nicely. And I just don't want it to rub a hole through the hose just like we did on that one over there. So got our safe edge and just push it on. All right, now that this one's done, let's take it in, dry fit it. I gotta make sure that little duct piece is all glued in place first, and then we can see how much more we need going into the bottom. right, so I ran into an issue. Originally, I was gonna have the valves for shutting off the water up here off to the side so that we'd have plenty of room for stacking stuff. Well, now the duct is going to actually cover that area. So now we've got to cut these lines and move these valves to over here. So we're gonna make that happen at some point. All right, so the air coming up from the underbody, the hot air, the Webasto will be coming up in this area, in this corner somewhere. There's a rib right here. So I'm gonna measure off of that rib. And about 23 inches from the inside edge, the rear facing edge of this rib, is where this wall is. So we need to be out this direction. So let's go into the underbody and see if we can locate where that spot is. Underneath the bus again. Oh, there's the Webasto. Look at that. It's looking nice. Nice and mounted. Try not to kill the camera while we're doing this. All right, so let's see if we could find where this rib is. So that rib is right behind here. If we have 20 inches. So what I may do is drill an inspection hole right here and just go straight up and see where that comes out, because trying to figure that out, I guess we'd come off of the window edge. But I know that we have to drill right here. So we'll just, yeah, we'll do that. All right, let me go grab the drill. I'll be back. All right, so put a little dot there. And now I'm gonna switch out bits for this one. I'm gonna go all the way through to the top level with this bit. All right, we'll see. Oh, that's not so bad. Right there. All right, y'all, I upgraded my Pro. I got full face shield Pro on now to the dark side of the bus. So 2 pipes are not gonna fit in that area. So I gotta get the angle grinder out and do a little trimming under there. So wish me luck. There you go. So that hole saw, I think it's completely toast. It is dull. It won't cut through the metal. So what I'm doing now is I'm drilling a few holes around the perimeter of each one of these holes so that I can go underneath with the angle grinder, with the diamond blade, and just cut it. That's what I'm gonna do. Go down there, I'm gonna cut it. There we go. Ended up needing to use the Sawzall, but there's the hole. Nice, isn't it? Very nice hole. Right here on the Webasto, this is where the hot air comes out. Well, I'm gonna put some ducts on here, hose clamp them on, and then run them up that hole and potentially insulate them. I don't know, we'll see what ends up happening. There we go. Got both the pipes connected with the hose clamps. If we had the right size, then we wouldn't have had to flare these out. But because we didn't have the right size, we have like 90 millimeter, and I think these take 80 millimeter. Then I just flared out these corners here, and then it clamped on just fine. Now I'm gonna throw some foil tape around this area that's rated for the temperature that these are rated for, and just to make sure that I seal off any of the like crimped areas. All right, so now that the hot air line has been run up to the top, we haven't really did the registers yet. I'm gonna get to doing the fuel line, running this. So it came with this fuel line here, and I believe this is 2 millimeter diameter on the inside. The fuel pump itself looks like that, and this gets mounted either to the Webasto itself or somewhere along the chassis. If the fuel pump and fuel source is 55 inches or less, then this can be installed directly on the Webasto. On the bottom side, there's a little spot for this to screw on. If this is gonna be, if the fuel source to the Webasto is larger than 55 inches, then the pump has to be installed within 55 inches of the fuel source. So that's our case. We're pretty far. So we're gonna install this somewhere in the underbody storage, probably on the chassis somewhere. We're gonna extend the fuel line and see how far we can make it with that. And then I've got some more fuel line here that this can adapt to, because this fits on the inside edge of the fuel line there. So the Webasto also came with a few little fuel hoses and stuff if you're connecting directly to it, and some clamps and stuff. So another thing that we're gonna use is this harness extender. So on the Webasto, there's a little clip where you normally just plug the fuel pump directly into here at the top. But because we're so far away from it, we're gonna see how far this line extends, and that's probably where the fuel pump is going to be. But on the pressure side, so from the fuel pump to the Webasto, you can go like 6 meters, which is pretty far distance. And I don't think that we'll need to extend that far. So let's see where we're gonna route this and how we're gonna get it through both sides of the underbody storage walls. Another thing to consider is when having the fuel line secured, make sure that it's nice and tight and it's not sagging anywhere, nice and level. Anytime that it's traveling, just nice and level. That way the air bubbles and stuff doesn't form in like little P-trap sort of situations. So that was the only tips that I saw in the instructions. So let's run some fuel lines. right, y'all. Next step, we get the end of the wiring harness, which has 4 wires. There's a red and blue, a red and black, a red, and a brown. They don't want you putting this on a switch other than the switch that it comes with. And this little kit here, which comes in this nice little baggie of all the little pieces, is what they want you to use for putting all of this together. Now, I've never done this before, and their instructions, well, their instructions aren't so great. So we've got to figure out what we need. So in this little package, it looks like there's this red cable with some little clamp ends. I'm guessing the fuse blades probably clip onto those somehow. There's a little screw, a Phillips screw. Not sure what that's for yet. There's a 15, and a 5. So there's those fuses right there. Little yellow things, I don't know. Some clear tops. Let's see if these say anything on them. Nope, they're just tops, nothing specific. So there's some tops. Some ring terminals, crimpable. 2 of those. And then 2 more blade grabbers, and these aren't hooked up to anything. And then this looks like it might be, I've got no idea what this is. I wonder if this is a mounting bracket. Well, look at that. That might be a mounting bracket. All right, y'all, I'm not sure how many days it's been since we've been working on the diesel heater, but we're back at it. Today we are going to change this up. So we got to move these 2 valves here to over here, and then plumb that back together, and then connect our recirculating vent right there. Well, it's not really vent, recirculating ducting. But first we need to turn off the breaker for the water heater. So let's see which one that is. It's number 10. And there's 10 right there. So that guy's off because we're gonna need to bleed the system of all the pressure. So we also need to find the fresh water pump, which is this one here, and we're gonna turn that off. I hope you've got plenty of water. Do you have plenty of water?
I don't need anything right now.
She doesn't need anything right now.
I gotta clean the floor, continue my buffing saga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that we can, the idea is that once we start putting walls in, that we're not like buffing up against the wall. So if I can get the whole edge, then we can put the wall down and rock and roll.
Yeah.
So that should be fun.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
And then we'll get these hot air pipes put in, and then the control station, start getting that set up for all of these.
Same shirt on. You just changed.
All right, I'm changing my shirt real quick. All right, got a new shirt on. That way we don't match. We both were feeling the vibe, I guess, for kindly be fucked off. So we're gonna purge the cold and the hot. There we go. And we're gonna leave that just in the middle position so that we've got no back suction happening. Because now we've got to drain a lower point in the system, Right outside. All right, there we go. So we got the two valves in place, moved from here to up there. We put a straight barb fitting right here, and then now we just have to insulate those pipes again. But first, before we do that, I'm gonna turn on the water and make sure that none of these little spots are leaking. Turn the water heater back on, and we'll turn the pump on also. How you doing?
Slow going, but look at the difference between this. Like, watch this. This might be better when it's right.
Wow.
So that's an oversaturated floor mixed with dirt. That's what that looks like.
Wow.
But see how this is kind of like pocky? Like you can almost see like dots, like it's like sucked into the pores, or like the pores are overflowed with the oil. That's what we're up against.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah. I don't know if like it's gonna be lasting or what, but
I wonder if it'd be worth it to get a hand buffer that's like has a T handle on it with a bigger, like a 10-inch disc or a 6-inch, and that way we've got more surface area. I don't know. Good job. All right, so these all look good. There's no leaks coming from around any of these edges, which is nice. And these lines look good also, 0 leaks. So that is good. So now we'll be able to reconnect this ducting here, this return air to that with that. And just like that, the ducting is finished. Look at that. That looks like it makes the curve real nicely for the recirculating air. So that looks pretty good. Goes all the way up to there. Makes a little jog. All I did was cut out some pieces to match this angle. Just held a piece of the thermo pan up against it, traced the angle, and then cut it. It was not scientific. Aaron will be proud that I traced.
Sounds like it's going into something.
Yeah, it sounds like it's entering the tank in there.
Key.
So this thing holds 15 gallons. That's 3 of these jugs. So when we ever fill this up, we'll always make sure to have 15 extra gallons with us.
Smart. The endless showers are real.
And I'm curious to see if the fuel gauge will register that it's filling up.
You know what this means? It means endless showers. For all of us. All of us living in this bus.
So far, so good.
Yay!
Diesel's in the tank. The fuel gauge is registering. And now let's see if we could spark up the Webasto and get heat out of it. The little registers came out pretty nice. Right here is where the little control panel is gonna live. It's gonna be mounted somewhere up here. And we're just kind of playing with that right now. But we need to hook up the temperature gauge and then also the wire that came out from down there. So let's get that hooked up to the back. All right, so I'm not sure exactly where we're gonna put this temperature gauge yet, but for now, I'm just gonna wedge it right here. Because we'll drill a hole somewhere and that'll just kind of stick out somewhere.
Oh, you could put it in your little copper thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, we totally could put it in the copper thing. But I'm gonna have it kind of hanging here for the moment. It's got two little leads and I've got them just plugged in into the back. Doesn't really matter which side they go into because it's 12 volt. And this guy here plugs in to the back here. And then this guy here, there's two coming off. This is from the wiring harness that is off of the Webasto, the big long one. This is for a data port. So if this was to get serviced by Webasto, that's what that would hook up to. And then this is the communication wire. And that guy, let's see, I'm gonna come under here. Plugs in the back there. All right, this is like, we've been experimenting with how to do this and being underneath the bus. After this was on in the heat position, for just a little bit, like maybe a minute or so. Then the pump started to make the ticking noise, which was the pump activating and pushing the diesel through. So what we figured is, and this is, the instructions make no mention of this. It just says, oh, be sure to prime it properly. It's like, okay, well, go ahead and tell us what properly means in this context. So this is what we figured out. If we turn it to the heat position, because we don't have the water hooked up to it yet, and the green light's on, as soon as the green light starts turning red, that means, and blinking red, there's a code that there's a certain number of flashes, which basically means, hey, the Webasto's not receiving any diesel. So in that case, you turn it off to the off position. And once the green light goes out, the system has done its shut off and it's completely off. Then come back and turn it back to heat mode. Because we're stretching our lines like about 16 feet or so, it took a while for the diesel to prime itself all the way to the Webasto unit. However, once it started to enter the unit, it started to heat up the entire bus just wonderfully. The heat felt really, really good and it had really good blowing. So initially there's a little bit of air blowing off of this and the diesel's now primed, but it's gonna take just maybe a minute or so for it to like fire up and start really blowing, and it starts blowing harder. We have heat. We have heat.